Well, for months we've watched the dramatic scenes of desperate men, women and children being pulled from the waters of the Mediterranean with a certain amount of pride and certainly an amount of growing horror. Since May, our naval service has been central to a huge humanitarian rescue mission off the coast of North Africa. First to set sail in May was the Ellie Ethna, and when that came home, the Ellie Neve took its place. So tonight really is the first opportunity to meet some of the heroic crew members of both ships and to hear their stories firsthand. Here's a little reminder of what they faced.
Slowly, very good, okay. Very good. Right, do you want to switch over here, Craig, yeah? Alright, Sully, we'll be taking two more, yeah? That's the last one, Sully, okay? This one here? Yep, these two. Okay. Okay, very good. Okay. Alright, we'll see. Okay, my friends, let go. Okay, we will come back, okay? We will come back.
Would welcome please Lieutenant Shane Mulcahy, Search and Rescue Officer with the Ellie Ethna, also Lieutenant Commander Daniel Wall, Captain of the Ellie Neve, and Minister for Defence, Agriculture, Food and Marine, Simon Coveney. So you're all very welcome, obviously. We just felt that it was appropriate to mark the return of your colleagues and to I suppose not celebrate at least, but certainly to mark our appreciation for what's been going on in the high seas in the Mediterranean. So Shane, if I could begin with you to perhaps give us a little overview of what's been happening, why you were out there and what you've been doing.
Well, I was the Search and Rescue Coordination Officer on board the Ellie Ethna. And when we were tasked back in May, we were given the task and had about 21 days to prepare. That involved a lot of research on all of our parts in terms of what other navies and other agencies were doing down there, what operational capabilities we could provide, and what kind of standard procedures, operational procedures and emergency procedures we could put in place, and what amount of training we could get in before we went.
So you had a lot of preparation to go out there, but I suppose in some ways, looking at even that clip and getting a sense of, you probably had no idea what you were going to face literally at the coalface of that.
It's well and good watching the videos we saw on RT and routers and things, but it's not the same as when it's unfolding before your eyes. You don't get the same immediate sense of urgency from it, no.
And what was unfolding before your eyes?
Just the sheer noise and chaos of that many people in need and in danger, and you're in a position where you know that you can help them, and you've received the training, and you have the ability to help them. And that's probably the biggest feeling you get, is just the fact that you're in a position where you can help these people in immediate danger. And to do so it feels very good.
I can imagine. And maybe you give us a sense of who they are and what they're fleeing.
I mean, we saw people from every walk of life in terms of sub-Saharan Africa, North Africa, people as far away as Bangladesh, fleeing war-torn countries. It gave us a very good impression of what they were fleeing, to see what they were willing to go through to get freedom from it, you know.
Okay, and if we talk to you, Daniel, about the idea of, with the Ellie Neve, when you went out, you were dealing with much more, I suppose, tragedy is probably not the right word, but certainly a hardship that nobody should have to go through.
We had a couple of episodes where we had to deal with the recovery of deceased migrants. 14 deceased migrants on the first occasion, and on the second occasion we had a capsize incident where a fishing vessel capsized, and we were left in a situation where we had 400 migrants in the water. So that is something that I've never seen before, and none of my crew have ever seen before. On that day, it was all about us staying calm, being professional. From my point of view, when I was on the bridge of the ship, it was about getting the ship close to all these migrants in the water, launching our life rafts as quick as possible, and then getting as many migrants as we could into these life rafts so that we could save as many lives as we possibly could that day.
The nature of the crafts that these people were coming out in and that you found, were they dinghies? Are they wooden? Are they, are they very basic?
They're rubber craft, and we encountered barges as well. Typically, they're very flimsy in construction, and they're overcrowded to a point where it's clear that the smugglers have no regard for human life. On a rubber boat, you might have 120, 130 migrants, and on a wooden barge, you could have upwards of 500 migrants.
On one barge?
On one barge,
What typically would the capacity be for such a barge?
Typically,
speaking.
like in normal waters,
Yes.
you would be only putting 20 people on
And you
something
found
like
how
that.
many?
We were finding 550 plus on one particular barge.
And on a dinghy, for example, you should have, under normal circumstances, how many?
You would only have maybe 10, and there was 120, 130 people on these dinghies.
And a lot of the people you would have been dealing with and rescuing probably wouldn't have been very used to water in any shape or form, and particularly, obviously, in terms of water travel.
That's right. Most of them were from countries perhaps that were landlocked, and they wouldn't have much experience of the ocean and seafaring in particular.
I'm going to talk to some of your colleagues in a minute, but I wanted to ask the Minister, thanks for joining us tonight also. I suppose you, not unlike myself, would have been watching this to an extent from afar. I know you went out, but initially, how were you reacting when you saw our friends here tonight going and doing what they do?
Well, first of all, I mean, we made a decision to send a naval vessel to the Mediterranean. Don't forget, this is the first ever mission that the Irish Naval Service has undertaken beyond, diplomatic visits to cities. So we gave them 3 weeks' notice from government to have a ship ready to go, and that put them under huge pressure. So I think a lot of people were watching to see how this would unfold. Nobody expected the kind of numbers that I think have subsequently been rescued. I mean, between the 3 ships now, it's almost 8,000 people have been taken out of the water. Another 207 yesterday by the crew of the Beckett. So, but I have to say, I mean, I just have nothing but admiration for, well, the Defence Forces in general. The Army for years have been doing us proud in places like southern Lebanon and the Golan Heights and North Africa and so on. But this was a very new mission. People weren't quite sure how it was going to turn out. But I can tell you the feedback I've got from our Italian counterparts, but also the reports that we get regularly from the ships. They've done an extraordinary job and saved many, many lives. There's a lot of people alive today who wouldn't be if it wasn't for the crews that you're seeing here today.
Let's go and see go and meet some of the members of the crew who have very kindly joined us tonight, and thank you for taking the time. Army Corporal Conor Kilbride. Conor, I'm going to ask you a straightforward question about baby Destiny, and you're smiling already because this obviously means something to you. Tell me.
I was, myself and Paul O'Connell, the other naval medic that was with me that day, we actually helped deliver baby Destiny into the world. Now, it wasn't under ideal circumstances, as you can imagine, being on the deck of a ship with 550 other people on board. We had limited space, we couldn't bring her down below. We had to keep her up on deck, and we got her off the Italian vessel, the Bergamini. We took more migrants off them, and we were told that they had an 8-month pregnant lady on board.
Yeah.
It turns out that she was actually due to give birth any day soon. So we kept a close eye on her. The night we got her on, she was complaining of pains, so we checked her over, but she was okay. There was no immediate danger to her. It was then the next evening that she came to us saying that she was actually in labour. So myself and Paul took her and we secluded her and got it as private as we could, and we checked her over and we looked and we could actually see the baby's head coming out. So we knew there and then that this was happening. There was no way we're going to...
Had you done such a thing before?
First time ever. Okay. Myself and Paul, first time ever.
How'd it go?
It went very well.
Everyone happy?
Everyone happy. Everybody, it went great.
Okay.
You couldn't, it was straightforward.
And mum and baby okay?
Mum and baby are
okay?
absolutely fine. It took a while to sink in what had actually happened.
Yeah.
But once we realised what had actually happened, it was an amazing feeling.
I can imagine. Alex Casey, you were right on the ribs, isn't that right? What's just for people who don't know what a rib is, you'll explain to us.
It's just more or less a powerboat, speedcraft that we're using to go to such barges and rubber crafts to bring out life jackets for the people, you know.
Right, so you see a craft coming in, as described, maybe 500 people on a craft that should have been only taking 40 or if that many. Tell us how that works. You go out in a rib.
Yeah, so there'll be 2 ribs dropped, so the 2 of them will approach from either side of the vessel, and really what we have to do is we have to stop and relax the people, reassure them that they're going to be safe and they're in safe hands, and we give out life jackets then also to the people.
So we see this, you can talk us through this. You've got black bags, or little refuge bags.
So in those black bags are just life jackets.
Yeah.
As you can see there, it looks like we're throwing them violently, but as soon as we get those life jackets into them and they have them on, they're in safer hands.
You can see the boat changing from darkness to orange in the sun.
Yeah, that's the life jackets.
Right.
Yeah.
You probably have to identify maybe an English speaker if you're lucky.
Yeah, you have to identify English speaker, see also then if there's anyone injured or pregnant, and an estimation of numbers also of people on board.
What sort of look do they have on their faces, the migrants, as they see it?
Fear
Not
really.
relief?
No, well, they're still in shock, you know, they're relieved to see us, but like, I mean, some of them being out there for 36 to 38 hours, you know, and you know, they're really struggling, they're dehydrated and malnutrition and everything, you know, so they're in a bad way, like.
Any incident in particular that stays with you?
Yeah, the one with the capsize on August the 5th, we were out in the rib, and as the one capsized that time, it was just like a scene nearly from the Titanic when you're looking at nearly 350 people in the water, you know. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to get the life jackets out to them, and then also ones that didn't have life jackets were taken into the boat, but also we had to take out 20 so dead bodies that day as well. So as we were taking them out, there was one in particular incident where we took a Syrian family and the mother was screaming saying her baby stopped breathing. So we took the family in, I took the infant in, so I started resuscitating the baby, and we got the baby back to life.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh,
so we were making our approach back to the ship, and unfortunately the child went unresponsive again. So I carried out resuscitation of the child again, and we brought her back, and I was able to do a handover with the medics on board, and thank God the child is living and she's nice and strong.
It's remarkable. It's remarkable to hear what you're doing out there, and thank you for coming to tell us about that as well. Lieutenant Aoife Camp, you know, when we see the boats coming in, the craft coming in, what's your role when they eventually get onto one of your own crafts, your ships?
Yeah, so I'm the navigation officer on board, and I'm just basically overseeing the bridge. Is almost like the operation hub throughout the operation, and I'm liaising with Lieutenant Mike Brunacardi, who's on the upper decks, and anything he needs to get done, he'll communicate with me, and I'll make sure it's done as well.
So when you see all these people coming in, they're, as we've been hearing, they're desperate, they're scared, and they feel just about lucky to be alive. Do you find yourself in a role where you have to try and keep them all together and say, look, you're here, we'll look after you, or do you have to be more officious than that?
Well, emotions are definitely running high during the operation, especially during the initial embarkation stations. But I think once they know that they're safe, they're initially fed, they're given water straight away. I think they very much see the ship as a place of safety, and you know, once they're seated, they'll start to calm down and they'll relax, and you know, they definitely feel safer on board.
Okay, Martin Kelly is here as well. Martin, Martin, you're with the Ellie Neve.
Yeah.
And when people come aboard, maybe you tell us a bit about what your role is at that stage.
Yeah, what I do when we start taking them aboard, I ministrate to women and children, take pictures of them, get where they're from, and all the other information we need. This is passed on then to Italian authorities in port. But when the women and children are done, when the female members of the crew takes over, and I start searching the males then till they're all on board.
Okay, and you've kind of probably have to find the bad guys too, don't you? I mean, the smugglers are probably trying to masquerade as good people too, but that's got to be a tough one.
Like Alex was saying there, the day the vessel went down on the 5th, on board that night, what I usually do is give out crayons and colours, or colouring books to the kids. And when I went up on watch, I went up to check were the kids okay.
Yes.
So there was one man with his child, he was after losing his wife, and another husband and wife lost their child. They said to me, you're after getting 3 smugglers. We had 3 segregated that we knew were smugglers.
Okay.
They said there's 2 more. So they told me to up forward, so I went up. I gathered the lads on deck, we went up. They gave us an idea of them. So I brought them down and I told the migrants to let us know, just give me a nod if they're them, because I didn't want the smugglers to see they were giving us the information.
Yes.
So they were them anyway, so I got the lads to segregate them, we put security on them. When I went back up to the migrants then, they were so happy, I couldn't believe how happy they were.
Yeah.
After just losing a child and a wife, and were so grateful. I thought that was...
They felt there was justice amid all the injustice, obviously, which is important. Lieutenant Mike Brudicardi, thanks for coming in tonight as well. Maybe you tell us about the 2 little boys you met, and just as a snapshot of what's happening out in the Mediterranean.
Yeah, Ryan, it was the day again of the capsize that, again, as we were taking the migrants on board, we identified 2 small boys, one 6, one approximately 7 years old, but we couldn't identify any parents. So in the recovery operation, when we had everybody back on board, we couldn't find any parents for them, so we took it that these 2 boys had been orphaned.
Mm-hmm.
Then the realisation that we were heading into port hit a lot of the migrants on board, that their loved ones were gone.
Yes.
So we kept an eye on the 2 boys. We paired them off with other migrants and kept checking in on them. Excuse me. Over the course of the transit in that evening, as our setup was on deck, you had on the port side the male toilets, and on the starboard side you had the male or the children and females toilets. So the 2 boys were queuing up. I was in my position down aft, and the men were queuing up in an orderly fashion, and one man just let a scream out of him. I don't know what happened. He collapsed onto the deck, down on all fours, started praying, kissing the deck, shouting. I ran over to see what was wrong with him, and all he was doing was pointing, my boys, my boys, my boys.
They made it.
And he turned around to me and asked, can I go over to my boys? So I said to him, absolutely. And in the tragic day that it was, that there was still a ray of hope that these 2 boys hadn't been orphaned.
What a story, another one. David Buckley. Where's David Digger? David, you were at the Eliathna, isn't that right?
That's correct.
So you would have seen people coming aboard, again, with stories to tell, but also in desperate state physically and emotionally. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I suppose, these people, have been at sea for, 24, 36, even 48 hours. So by the time we got to them, they would have been very dehydrated, some hypothermic, and to see some kids, with burns in their legs and that kind of stuff, was very, it wasn't nice to see. So it was our job to get there, efficiently and quickly as we possibly could to get them back on board, so our medics could look after them in the best manner that they could do see fit.
Right, and Rory DeBarra, of course, you were there at the Eliathna as well. When you've got maybe up to 600 people clamouring on board, how do you work the logistics of that? Because there's only so much you can do.
Absolutely. Well, we were kind of running a 3-watch system, so you'd split your crew into maybe 14 or 15 people. You would then, like myself, I'd take charge of those 14 or 15, and you sometimes lost track of the fact that you're looking after 650 people outside. So you just have to try and manage it as best you can. You're trying to provide access to the toilets in an orderly fashion, trying to organise food, trying to get out 700 covers of food to 650 people, 3 times a day is a struggle when you're not really designed for that. You have to accommodate when they all want to lie down. You can't move. They're all out in tinfoil blankets. There was actually the sight to behold at night of the flight deck just covered in tinfoil blankets, but they're all safe. A single Irish sailor standing in the middle of it in white who couldn't move for maybe 2 hours because he'd step on a migrant and wake them up. And it's just unique. And the peace and quiet that would come over them because they're getting rest. They can actually sleep. They're protected.
They're safe.
They're safe.
Oisin Walsh, you're the youngest member of the crew here tonight, and can I ask you how old you are?
22.
How was that experience for you on the
something different. It's
well, it is that now, Oisin, I have to say. By the sound of it, I suddenly feel very cosseted now at home watching on the couch. Go on.
Well, at the time, age didn't come into context at the time. We were all well trained. We seen what was there. We just stepped up to the mark. It's kind of when you come home and you're with your families, and then you kind of realise, wow, I'm after saving thousands of people, especially on the first one. I was driving the boat over, calmed everyone down, everything was, we could see everyone there, and you're kind of like, but then we asked for any women or children, and the next thing there was a baby just lifted up out of the crowd, something like out of the Lion King basically, you know. And then at that point I kind of went, it's crazy, you know. It was upsetting at times, you know, seeing the children, the states they were in, and where obviously they were coming from a lot worse backgrounds to risk what they were risking to come out and look for better land basically.
I'm flabbergasted, I have to say, and that's why I think it's so important to hear these stories tonight, Minister, because it suddenly stops being abstract and an item on the news into very real stories. And I don't think it's over the top to say, because I remember thinking at the time, watching the initial rescues, that, you know, our country had a difficult history with emigration and leaving on what were called coffin ships once upon a time, fleeing a desperate situation. And when we think of the work that we've been hearing about tonight, that's what they're doing, saving people in what are essentially coffin ships.
Yeah.
Boats or dinghies.
Absolutely. And that's why I think, you know, this has been such a transformative mission actually in terms of how people see the Defence Forces in Ireland.
Yes.
This isn't just about being soldiers and being good sailors. It's also been about compassionate human beings, helping people, talking to people, reuniting families.
And the Beckett was in the news again last night and today.
Yeah.
What's the plan?
The Beckett had a significant rescue yesterday.
Yes.
The Beckett is due home on the 4th of December.
Yeah.
I think at the moment the thinking is that we will then take stock for the rest of December and probably January.
And debrief maybe.
Yeah, because I mean this obviously impacts on the capacity of the Naval Service to do a job at home that they need to do as well. But I would be pretty confident that we'll be sending a ship back to the Mediterranean probably in February.
In February, okay. Well, look, I can't thank our friends for coming in tonight and talking to us like that, and we, I think, are very grateful as a country. I don't think I'm out of line by saying that. So we wish you well in your future endeavours, and thanks so much for coming in to see us on the show tonight, and well done. Thank you so much.